Kindig is a name that echoes through the world of custom car culture like thunder across the Bonneville Salt Flats. His builds are legendary, flawless, timeless, impossibly smooth. Whether it's a reimagined Corvette or a chopped 50s pickup, every project to come out of Kindig-It Design looks like it was born in a dream and forged by machines decades ahead of their time. There's no filler, no guesswork, just precision. Perfection. The kind of perfection that doesn't just happen. It comes from somewhere. And with Dave Kindig, that somewhere has always felt a little mysterious. Fans of Bitchin Rides know the public version of him well. The calm in the chaos, the designer who never cracks, the leader with a sketch pad, and a vision that somehow always becomes real. Episode after episode, season after season, Dave has become one of the most recognized and respected names in automotive television. The cars are wild, the transformations are jaw-dropping, and the man behind it all never seems to miss. But when you step back from the camera angles and see what's really happening behind those perfect builds, you start to notice something strange. Why is Dave so driven? Why does he take every design so personally? Why does he often look at a completed car like he's seeing more than just metal and paint? Because he is. The truth is, Dave Kindig's obsession with perfection didn't come from a thirst for fame, or even a love of cars. It came from somewhere much deeper, somewhere darker. And that part of his story, the part that never made it onto the show, that's where this journey begins. Because before the cameras, before the accolades, before Kindig-It was a household name, there was a moment, a single, tragic moment that changed everything. And once you learn what really happened, you'll never see one of his cars the same way again. Before the TV lights, before the SEMA Awards, Dave Kindig was just a kid with a passion, a pencil, and a wild imagination. No formal training, no million-dollar backers, just pure, obsessive talent. He saw shapes in his head, cars that didn't exist yet, but should. And he set out to bring them to life, one sketch at a time. In the early days, Kindig-It Design wasn't a high-tech facility with a polished showroom floor. It was a small, cramped garage in Salt Lake City. Barely enough room to turn a wrench, let alone build a legacy. But Dave didn't need room. He needed freedom. Freedom to create, to push boundaries, to chase perfection without compromise. Word began to spread. First it was local car lovers, then collectors, then magazines, and finally, the industry heavyweights at SEMA took notice. Kindig. Its builds weren't just clean, they were revolutionary. Each one carried a signature style, elegant, low-slung, aggressive, yet refined. Dave wasn't just customizing cars, he was reshaping the culture. But even as his fame grew, those closest to him noticed something strange. He never celebrated the wins for long, never slowed down, never looked back. It was as if Dave was chasing something he couldn't catch, or running from something he couldn't face. Friends chalked it up to passion. Fans called it drive. But in reality, it was neither. Because Dave Kindig wasn't building for fortune or fans. He was building to cope. And buried beneath the metal, the paint, and the polish was a wound that hadn't healed. In the world of custom cars, shops rise and fall all the time. But what set Kindig-It apart wasn't just the builds, it was the people behind them. Specifically, one person, Charity Kindig. Dave didn't just marry his high school sweetheart. He married someone who would become the other half of everything he built. Charity wasn't a silent partner. She co-founded Kindig-It. She ran the business, made the hard decisions, kept the books tight, and helped build the brand from the inside out. Together, they were unstoppable. As their vision expanded, so did the family's role. Their daughter Bailey took over the front office, managing logistics and clients with the same calm intensity as her father. Their son Drew became a metal-shaping prodigy in his own right, joining the fabrication team and eventually earning his place beside some of the best in the business. It wasn't just a company, it was a legacy. A family name stamped onto every car that rolled out of the shop. And with every project, the Kindigs grew stronger, together. But behind the harmony was something unspoken, a weight, a chapter they rarely discussed. Because long before Bitchin Rides made them household names, the Kindigs faced something that nearly tore it all apart. A tragedy so deep, so personal, that it threatened everything they'd built. From the outside, they looked like the perfect team, but on the inside, they were holding each other up through something most families never recover from. And what happened next would redefine not just their business, but their very purpose. There are some stories even reality TV won't touch. This is one of them. Years before the world met Dave Kindig on television, before the Kindig-It name was etched in hot rod history, Dave and Charity suffered a devastating loss. They lost a child. No press. No cameras. Just silence. Those close to the family say everything changed after that. Dave disappeared into the shop. He didn't talk. He didn't cry. He built. 8, 10, 12 hours a day, sometimes more. Metal was easier to work with than emotions. Paint didn't ask questions. And in that garage, surrounded by sparks and fumes, he found the only kind of peace he could understand. Charity stood by him, always. Even in her own grief, she stayed strong for the family, for the business, for Dave. Together, they poured their heartbreak into something tangible, Kindig-It Design. But something inside Dave shifted. What once was a dream to build cool cars became something much heavier. Every vehicle he touched had to be perfect. Not for profit, but for meaning. Because in his mind, these cars weren't just machines. They were tributes. They were therapy. He once told a close friend off camera, "When words fail, you work with your hands, and sometimes that's all you've got." And from that point forward, nothing he built was ever just a car again. After the loss, something inside Dave Kindig fundamentally changed. Gone was the builder simply chasing lines and horsepower. In his place was someone on a mission, one where every project became personal, even sacred. The garage wasn't just a workplace anymore. It became a sanctuary, a place where grief could be shaped, sanded, and sealed beneath layers of candy-colored paint. Dave began to approach each build differently, not as a transaction, but as a story. Before a single sketch hit the paper, he wanted to know everything. Why this car? Who was it for? What did it mean? Clients who came in expecting a hot rod left with something more. Because Dave wasn't just designing vehicles, he was resurrecting memories. One man brought in his father's old muscle car, rusted, gutted, barely salvageable. Dave didn't flinch. He asked for photos, letters, family stories. He rebuilt it from the frame up, not just to original specs, but to what the car meant to that family. When the client saw the final result, he broke down. Not because of the paint job, because Dave had somehow brought his father back, through chrome and steel. Moments like that became common, and they weren't accidents. Because for Dave, every bolt tightened was a step toward healing, not just for the client, but for himself. People began to whisper that Kindig-It builds had something different about them. They couldn't quite put it into words, but those who knew the truth, they understood. This wasn't just fabrication. This was grief, turned into art. Over time, the industry began to notice something powerful about Kindig-It's reputation. Yes, the cars were flawless. But there was something else, something intangible. Clients weren't just satisfied, they were moved. Some cried during the final reveal, others stood in stunned silence. Because the car in front of them wasn't just a vehicle, it was a piece of their soul, built into steel. These builds weren't about chasing speed records or rare badges. They were emotional time machines, vehicles frozen in memory, reimagined through pain and beauty. One story stands out. A mother came in with a wrecked classic Mustang that belonged to her teenage son, who had passed away in a tragic accident. The car was barely recognizable, damaged beyond use. But she had a vision, and Dave said yes. Not only did he restore it, he elevated it. The exact color her son had talked about. The interior styled to match his favorite jacket. The stereo preset with the last playlist he made. When she saw it, she didn't say a word. She walked around the car, placed her hand on the hood, and wept. That wasn't just her son's car. It was him, back again for one last ride. Dave watched from a distance, silent, still, because that's the part viewers never see. The weight behind the reveal, the quiet between horsepower and heartbreak. For Dave, it's not about putting his name on the build. It's about putting his heart into it. And that's what Kindig-It had quietly become. Not just a hot rod shop, but a place where broken things are made whole again. In a world obsessed with speed, horsepower, and flash, Dave Kindig chose a different lane. He could have gone full throttle into commercial expansion, franchise shops, overseas licensing, celebrity builds on demand. The offers came. The money was real. But Dave said no, because for him, Kindig-It wasn't just a business. It was a living, breathing tribute to something deeper. The shop walls don't just echo with the hum of welders and compressors. They carry stories. Stories of fathers and sons, of loss and love, of second chances. And in those stories, Dave saw reflections of his own. The legacy he wanted wasn't tied to profits or network deals. It was tied to people, to moments that mattered, to a truth he lived every day, that the most beautiful things often come from the most broken places. Ask his team, and they'll tell you. Dave works differently now. He listens more, feels more, turns down high-paying jobs if the story doesn't speak to him. Because each build has to mean something. It has to matter. And maybe that's why his work resonates so deeply. Because it's not born in a boardroom, it's forged in real emotion. The Kindig-It logo may be stamped on the back of every car, but what's really embedded in each one is legacy. Not just for Dave, but for everyone he builds for. When Bitchin Rides premiered, everything changed, but only on the surface. Suddenly, Dave Kindig wasn't just a builder. He was a TV personality. Millions watched as he walked through the shop with effortless, cool, sketching bold designs and delivering jaw-dropping transformations. He became the calm center of chaos, even when deadlines loomed or something didn't fit. Viewers saw precision, poise. What they didn't see was pain. Because the show never touched the story behind the story. The personal tragedy, the loss that shaped Dave's entire creative identity remained off-screen. And that was by choice. He never used it for ratings, never leaned into drama for sympathy. Instead, he kept it tucked deep inside, letting it guide him without defining him. Still, if you look closely, you can see the weight in his eyes during certain moments. When he listens a little longer to a client's backstory, when he pauses before handing over the keys, when he silently watches a completed build roll away, that's when you realize this isn't just another episode. This isn't just a business transaction. It's a ritual. One where Dave takes someone else's grief, memory, or dream and gives it form. And behind the scenes, that's what makes Bitchin Rides different from every other garage show on TV. It's not just about horsepower. It's about heart power. And that quiet truth is what's kept fans coming back season after season. To the world, Dave Kindig is unstoppable. A man with a golden touch who never misses. But even legends have scars they don't show. Off camera, those closest to Dave say he's different than he was in the early days. Softer, more reflective, still a perfectionist, but no longer just for perfection's sake. He's chasing something else now. Healing, redemption, peace, maybe all three. Because every car he builds is a goodbye to something. A moment that's passed. A person who's gone. A version of himself that no longer exists. That's what fans don't see when they binge episodes. They see flawless body lines, but miss the emotion buried in the build. They see the reveal, but not the memories welded into the frame. And when Dave watches a car roll away, it's not just a client he's letting go of. It's a piece of himself. That's the price of building with your soul. You leave a little bit of it behind. Every time. But he does it anyway. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. And in doing so, Dave Kindig has turned personal tragedy into shared transformation. One car at a time. Today, Dave Kindig stands at the top of his craft. His shop is world-renowned. His designs are instantly recognizable. His TV show continues to inspire a new generation of builders, dreamers, and gearheads. But strip away the lights, the success, and the polished showmanship, and you find something far more powerful. A man who refused to be broken. A man who took the darkest moment of his life and forged it into something timeless. His legacy isn't defined by the cars alone. It's defined by why he builds them. Because anyone can restore a vehicle. But to restore a memory? To give someone back a piece of their past? That takes something deeper. It takes empathy. It takes pain. It takes soul. Dave Kindig once said, "If I can help someone carry their pain and leave with joy, I've done more than just build a car. I've done what I was meant to do." And maybe that's the lesson in all of this. That beauty born from loss doesn't just endure. It drives. It rolls forward. And it inspires. Because when you look at a Kindig-It build, you're not just seeing steel. You're seeing survival.